credentials are that I got into Stanford, NYU, USC, Boston University with the Presidential Scholarship and into their honors college, and Northwestern. Hi, I'm Atlas, and I am a writer and also a upcoming student at Stanford, which still hasn't really hit me. I'm probably gonna burst into tears when I step foot on campus, but I got a request for stats, which I have a video on my TikTok about that. I'm not as confident in my stats per se as I am my essays, so I thought I'd make a more full-length video on my essays. But for just a little rundown, as of applying, I had a 4.0. I was in the top 9% of my class. An IB diploma candidate. I applied test optional, so you don't need to know my test scores. There's some more stuff. I applied in communications at Stanford and Vanderbilt, which I didn't get into Vanderbilt. Obviously, the writing is going to be a pretty big factor in those. I'm not gonna read every single college essay for every single university I applied to, but I will do all of the ones for Stanford, as well as some of the more unique ones. So let's get started with my Common App essay. I think that's a good place to start. Unicorn players. I still say the name fondly. From 4th to 5th grade, fake names adorned, my friends and I posted YouTube classics such as the Edamame song, Unicorn News, and I Died on the Inside. Our mascot, Ajax with the APAC, watched over us and our whopping 39 subscribers all the way. As kids these days say, we were cringe, but we were free. Except, all good things must come to an end. At least for my friends it did. Unicorn players didn't end with a bang. We simply started middle school. Suddenly, the channel became an embarrassing subject, for reasons unbeknownst to me. In my eyes, it had been a passion project that I put in hours of work editing and brainstorming for. We hadn't done anything mortifying except apparently be enthusiastic. In middle school, if you're not nonchalant, you're cringy, and that's exactly what I've always been. 6th through 8th grade convinced me to reframe those traits of mine to fit societal norms. In many ways, I failed, but I succeeded overall. The first step to that success was to take my YouTube escapades into hiding. On September 22nd, 2020, my solo career began. I went by Killian and posted hoping to gain support for my artistic endeavors. As much hard work went into curating a relatable persona, it was all performative. For 2 years, I published content I now describe as faux philosophical. After that, I changed my pen name to Atlas, a permanent switch, and made vlogs that were straight up boring. The real me, the person to randomly dance in public and speak exclusively in brain rot, if only to exasperate my sister, was locked away. I never told anyone about the YouTube channel, but I still feared it would be found, so I never fully let loose. I took long, unplanned breaks from posting. The inconsistency stemmed from embarrassment disguised as a hatred for editing. In my mind, the only way to affirm my passion was to gain oodles of subscribers, which didn't happen. In fact, despite the effort I put into my vlogs, my most viewed long-form video to date is 15 minutes of ASMR typing. The caption reads, "IDK why I did this, I just had this video in my camera roll and am not finished with my next vlog." When I took the most recent break, I reflected on the success of that video. I was hurt that people liked listening to my typing more than what I had to say, but the more I thought, the less I could blame them. What did I have to say? For months, nearing the end of my junior year, I meditated on ways to strengthen my voice. It hit me over coffee with a former unicorn player. She simply looked at me and stated, "You've gotten funnier recently." It was a throwaway comment, but it made me pause, because in my mind, my quirks weren't funny, just awkward. The result of this light bulb moment came a couple months later when I posted a study vlog on YouTube Shorts. It utilized playful stickers, odd voices, funny filters, and the occasional mewing. It was unapologetically me. I posted the short without expectations, and compared to my older videos, it got low views. However, I gained 3 subscribers, giving it the highest conversion rate of any of my videos. As I continued posting in this style, I got engagement other than just views. People began to comment things like "peak" and "you're so funny, please don't go bald." In the past, I had feared being perceived as weird, but as I gained subscribers, even in small amounts, I realized that the traits that made me odd had led to this growth. Now I can confidently say that I have become comfortable with who I have always been and always will be. Cringe, but free. The thing with Common App essays is it doesn't matter what prompt you do, just literally write something, guys.
I'm not an admissions officer, disclaimer, but I think I was pretty personable in that essay. I also think because I was being myself and like it was talking about me being true to myself, it fit in with a lot of my other supplemental essays and attributes that I said that I had in those essays, like me bringing a diverse perspective. Yeah, I got a distinct writing voice, and also I wrote a lot about like my love for brain rot because that was my info in speech and debate last year, so I wrote a lot about that, and so it like connected back to that, so everything's all connected.
The next one that I am going to read is just the introduction, and this is for Boston University. Boston University was the university, like I looked at their program and I decided then that I wanted to major in Boston University instead of business administration, and so my like intro for the why us essay, or like why do you want to go to Boston University and how do you plan to contribute, was a little different, so I will read that part. My passion is storytelling, but previously my stories all had the same problem. I couldn't decipher how they served the wider community. It wasn't until I watched the Boston University video, Colmy Edmonds 23, Journalism and Political Science, that I understood to blend art and advocacy, I need to major in journalism. Researching Boston University's unique opportunities and immersive curriculum inspired me to follow my dreams and become a journalism major. This university saved me from being miserable while pursuing a degree in business administration. For that, I will always be grateful. Can you tell that I'm a speech kid from the way I'm talking? That is an example of me displaying a really strong connection to a university, so I thought that would be an interesting example to include. I thought I was gonna go there, okay? They gave me a lot of money, but Stanford gave me more. Next, I'm going to read my New York University. It was optional technically, but I'm a journalism major. I'm not gonna skip over an essay. I actually very much enjoyed writing every single one of these. The prompt was consider like one or more of the following in your essay. Tell us about a time you encountered a different perspective, an experience you've had working with others, what role did you play in helping people work together, and tell us about someone you've observed that does a particularly good job at helping people think or work together, you know, things like that. I talk to imaginary people. When I was younger, it was Perry the Dragon. Now it's characters from the stories I write, though really they write themselves. When I'm in situations of conflict, I ask myself, what would my characters do? Over the summer, I attended an overnight leadership camp called Anytown. Every morning, we broke into the same small group. I walked in excited to make friends and was horrified to learn that my group was the most introverted in camp, complete with the most introverted counselor. It was the counselor's advisor who fought to get us to talk. Every person had a different background, making us hesitant to open up. After the first day, I was tired of the silence and resolved to do something about it with the help from Adelpha. Adelpha Carnell is a runaway princess who became a rogue bounty hunter. Her strengths lie in spellcasting and her ability to strike up conversation. For the rest of camp, I channeled Adelpha's charisma and talked first, prompting others to join in. By the end, we were comfortable opening up, and the counselor's advisor thanked me for encouraging others. I have a character for every situation. When I don't want to study, I recall the studious Josephine Watts. When I face someone with a differing opinion, I remember writing Jean Sabot, emphasizing with a character with a different moral set than myself. So I talk to imaginary people, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
This essay almost killed me because when I first read that prompt, I was like, I've never done any empathetic thing ever and connected to any diverse perspectives or helped anyone or spoken to anyone ever. But guys, I did reflect on it and I was like, wait, the counselor did thank me for something. So what is that something that they thanked me for? They thanked me for speaking first. So how did I do that? And so I have crazy imposter syndrome, and maybe some of you guys do too. But for your college essays, the college admissions don't want to see, but everyone made a conscious effort to talk. They don't want to freaking hear that. They want to hear from your perspective. You're allowed to be a little egotistical, a little narcissistic, and tell it from your perspective. I'm not freaking the other people in my group. They can tell their own perspective. This is my perspective. I did something here, okay? So hype yourself up. Be confident, boo. Sorry, I just had to take a lap around my house because I have so much energy, so I'm a little winded and a little hyped up and a little, yeah, you should be hyped up too. Be hyped up about yourself.
I'm gonna read my Northwestern ones. Northwestern's Why Us were a little bit different than the other ones. They wanted to know how my background shaped how I'm going to engage in campus culture. So I talked about my identity in a state that's 50th in education and how that is going to translate to me valuing education because I know that it's a privilege. Usually you don't want to talk about things that you've already talked about in your application, like they already know you have a 4.0, but I did talk about, I talked about how the IB diploma made me more studious. Okay, and then for the other Northwestern essays, they have optional ones. So the optional ones that I chose were Northwestern's location is special, on the shores of Lake Michigan, steps from downtown Evanston, just a few miles from Chicago. What aspects of our location are most compelling to you and why? I liked a lot of the essay options, but this one really spoke to me because I do have a personal connection to Chicago, so I wrote about that. When I was looking for a car, one requirement was reliable enough to drive to Chicago. In freshman year, my friends and I planned a road trip to the Pitchfork Music Festival. Every summer until the festival shut down, we spent 3 precious days in the greatest city in the world. It was in Chicago that I learned to use public transportation, budget for a trip, and book a hotel. It's also where I first considered going into journalism.
Halting here because, as you guys know, I already said that that BU was the thing that made me switch my major from business administration to journalism. And I just want to say, don't lie in your essays. Just be yourself for real. I didn't lie about this. I was going to apply in journalism to Northwestern and then business administration everywhere else, because Northwestern journalism was my dream since 8th grade, and it was like, if I got into Northwestern, it's a sign I should become a journalist, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, didn't lie about that. Don't lie in your essays.
Northwestern's proximity to Chicago attracted me initially. What better place to chase my dreams than in an international hub? The student in me squealed when I saw the neo-Gothic Chicago Tribune building, and the Sagittarius in me jumped for joy walking through O'Hare. Unfortunately, each time I visited Chicago, the trips were rushed. I've only seen Lake Michigan once. Evanston's proximity to Chicago is a perk. However, its distance promotes learning and keeps students grounded. I can see myself writing short stories in Fountain Square or interviewing people at Backlot Coffee. Evanston is more than just a suburb of Chicago. It's somewhere I would be proud to call my home for the next 4 years. My essay doc is like a freaking mess because I took all the parts I was cutting and instead of deleting them, I just made them like 9-point font because I'm a freaking idiot, apparently. Okay, I'm gonna give you a really big tip here, and my tip is to be like really honest and very open and vulnerable, and apply to schools that you do have a connection to, because that will make essay writing so much easier. The other Northwestern essay that I wrote was Painting the Rock is a tradition at Northwestern that invites all forms of expression. Students promote campus events or extracurricular groups, support social activist causes. What would you paint on the rock and why? I agonized over this one and I rewrote it like a day before I had to submit. But I got it through eventually and I really like how it turned out. On the rock, I would paint a black dot with spindles coming off of it and eyes in the middle. It would be instantly recognizable as a soot sprite in Studio Ghibli's Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro. From the breathtaking artwork to narrative themes, the studio's films are statements about what it means to be human. Ghibli's famous director, Hayao Miyazaki, has famously stated that AI animation is an insult to life itself. AI cannot infuse emotions into every animation cell. It cannot feel the hunger that the artists live off of, striving to succeed at their craft. Human connection is increasing in value as AI becomes more popular. A human touch will become most important in journalism. Many don't know who to trust, but providing humanistic reporting will be a way to unite people. While watching the soot sprites dance across the screen and Ghibli Spirited Away, the viewer understands that the work behind them is what makes them so fantastic. With this context, something as simple as a soot sprite can come to represent more than its literal nature. That is why I would paint a soot sprite, to remind myself and others that AI art will never be able to replace human connection. Okay, another note before we get to Stanford is I, again, not an admissions officer, don't know why I got in here. I worked really hard to make myself seem like a good journalism student instead of just like a good student in general, because good student in general, I did not get a 1600 on my SAT, let's just say that. So I was very major specific, I suppose. Now on to Stanford. There were so many essays for this. I'm just gonna give you an overview of what I did for my short questions. The short questions are, significant challenge society faces. I said we should work towards overcoming individualism and move towards collectivism. My last 2 summers, I wrote about how I saved up to buy a car, and then I talked about a leadership camp that I did not mention in my comment app. A historical moment or event I'd like to witness. I said the paparazzi performance from Lady Gaga at the 2009 VMAs, which is the same year that the Taylor and Kanye incident happened, because 2-year-old me should have been watching the VMAs. And then my extracurricular job or activity or family responsibility I wanted to expound upon, is that the word? Was my Gold Award. So I just talked about what I did with that specifically. 5 things that were important to me. I said animal welfare, keeping track of my finances, show that responsibility, sustainable fashion, maintaining artistic freedom, and also what's for dinner. Okay, now onto my short essays. Idea or experience that makes you excited about learning. I am a child of social media. Not only do I participate in it, but I am interested in how it has changed the English language. Generation Z/Alpha internet slang comes from fundamental concepts of linguistic evolution. Unfortunately, these words are disregarded and seen as brain rot. When we dismiss new slang, we deny the fact that language is always shifting. The changing of colloquialisms is connected to shifts in humor, speech patterns, and larger movements. Additionally, vocabulary and its origins can define cultural philosophy. Language is what connects people, but division may arise if the population refuses to accept its versatility. Researching this subject has taught me life lessons and given me an expanded perspective. When I began researching internet slang, I judged the very words I was fascinated with just because society didn't take them seriously. However, the more knowledge I gained on this topic, the less hostile I became. One shouldn't go into research with a bias, but it's difficult to pinpoint these biases in oneself. Researching brain rot has reminded me to acknowledge my positionality. It has also provided me with a deeper understanding that knowledge leads to the deconstruction of prejudice. Each new subject that I research teaches me more about the learning process. I'm always finding new passions like Indigenous language endangerment and the American literacy levels. Still, my journey writing about slang will be on my mind each time I start a new project from here on out. Yeah.
Okay, some context. One of my other stats, one of my extracurriculars, was I was a featured artist on a music album that was a compilation of a bunch of different Cherokee Indigenous artists, and it was sung entirely in the endangered Cherokee language. So that was something really unique and cool I had. So I sprinkled that into this essay. I said one of my other passions is Indigenous language endangerment, because again, everything's interconnected.
I didn't research Stanford at all because I literally didn't think I'd ever get in. But when I saw the note to future roommate prompt, I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta apply here. I gotta write this. This is so fun. I did kind of become idealistic in my social skills when I was writing it. Do I have enough social skills to do all the things that I'm gonna do? No, but this is who I am at my core. This is who I want to be. Note to future roommate. Hello, roommate. A few warnings. First, I am a morning person and too clumsy to keep entirely silent at 7 a.m. Secondly, if I hear a song I know, I have to start singing. It's not a choice, it's a calling. Third, I'm from Oklahoma, and the accent slips out sometimes. I personally wouldn't consider this a con, but people act like it's one. They seem surprised that my accent doesn't determine my intelligence level, politics, or literally anything. Now onto the good parts. I'm a coffee snob, which means we'll always have some Cafe Bustelo on hand, and I also have a loud voice, and my social skills only recovered from COVID 2 years ago, which means I can and will talk about anything. Oh, and I spend all of my free time writing and journaling. I hope you'll be fine with me making any room into a writer's room. And I can't wait to cast you in one of my impromptu table reads for a script I came up with in a dream. Now for some miscellaneous things. I'm a stereotypical Sagittarius, my first child will be named Penelope, and my ultimate goal is to become a homeowner. Now that you know me, I'll let you in on a secret. Everyone calls me Atlas, not my legal name. Think of it as a pen name. I just didn't like my legal name. And if I don't like something, I'm going to change it. Sincerely, Atlas. I also go by she, they pronouns, so that's also why I changed my name. But if I don't like something, I'm going to change it. Like, that sounded smoother, so. And then the last one was life experiences, interests, and character that would help you make a distinctive contribution to Stanford. So this is again, why us, what are you going to contribute?
Whenever I talk about being Indigenous and Cherokee, I feel like I have to give this disclaimer. When I'm discussing my Cherokee heritage in this essay, I'm talking from a place of personal experience, not a place of authority. Growing up, because the way I got that ancestry is patriarchal, there's, some disconnect with my dad and his dad on that side. I did not grow up with around a lot of Indigenous people and with a lot of access to those cultural practices. However, I was raised on Cherokee stories and applying a lot of those values. And now my dad has really gotten back in touch with that side, and I have tried as well, but I'm just not very social, so it's been super hard for me, way harder for me. And so when I talk about my Cherokee values in this essay, I'm talking about how I have learned a lot about those values and how I really connect to them. I don't want to claim to be fully Cherokee, and I'm not speaking from a place of authority because that would be pretending of me. And there are a lot of people, especially in my home state of Oklahoma, that will claim to be Cherokee because their ancestor was a Cherokee princess or something, and that is very harmful to the culture, so I don't want to do that. It's really hard for me to claim that part of my heritage, so I felt like I had to give this disclaimer.
I am now proud of my Oklahoma heritage. We may be 50th in education, but that builds character. We may be isolated, but that has only made me adventurous. And we may be seen as white trash, but if you cared to ask, you'd learn the rich African American and indigenous history of our state. My background in Oklahoma education, my Cherokee ancestry, and my values have primed me to make the most of my time at Stanford. I offer my belief that art is the key to connecting diverse groups. Using this, I can present creative solutions and concoct new ways to share knowledge. I look forward to bringing my skills to the Mint magazine and KZSU. My Cherokee roots have also given me the belief and knowledge for the betterment of community. My passion for creative writing and my indigenous ancestry give me a unique angle to connect with the masses. Coming from Oklahoma, I understand that education is a privilege. Therefore, I will take advantage of Stanford's academics by studying abroad to cultivate a global worldview. I will also take classes outside of my major, such as Introduction to Linguistics. Within my major, I will learn all I can from experts, including Professors Jeffrey Hancock and Gabriela Harari. I will maximize the knowledge I have and apply it to campus experiences and future places of employment. I am majoring in communications to learn, but going into the field to contribute. No place will better prepare me than Stanford. It's 95 degrees, the dew point is at least 70%. And I haven't had a sip of water all day, so I hope that this helped you. I also had like an honors college essay for Boston University, and then I had obviously like my USC essay, and then the rest of my BU essay. Have a good day, y'all. Stay hydrated.